Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon of light and hope to millions of black slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end their long night of their captivity. But 150 years later, the black man is still not free. 150 years later, the life of the black is sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 150 years later, the black lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 150 years later, the black is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we have come here to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to inherit. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on the promissory note. Insofar as her citizens of color are concerned, instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given to the black people a bad check, a check which came back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt.
Right.
We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. And so we have come to cash this check, a check which will give us, upon demand, the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have come to this hallowed spot today to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. This is not the time to say we've come a long way since slavery, a long way since Brown versus the Board of Education, a long way since Rosa Parks. Now is the time to make real all of the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of our legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 2017 is not an end but a beginning. And those who hoped that the black needed to blow off steam and now will be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. And there will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the black is granted all his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of justice in our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there's something I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads to the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the black community must not lead us to a mistrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. And they have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead, We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the black is the victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We cannot be satisfied as long as a justice system issues significantly longer prison sentences to black men. We cannot be satisfied as long as the black's basic mobility is from a small ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children cannot gain access to the equal education regardless of the community they live in or near. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are denied the same access to advanced placement classes as children of all other races. Where once the governors of southern states openly and defiantly blocked access to their schools, today black children are shackled to inferior schools by a funding system limited to the real estate values of the neighborhood their parents can afford to live in. We cannot be satisfied as long as a black in Missouri believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied and will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. And some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to St. Louis. Go back to Kansas City. Go back to Ferguson. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair, I say to you today, my friends. And even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
Amen. Amen to that.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and truly live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day across Missouri, one day right here, little black boys and little black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and little white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today that one day every mountain shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain be made low, and the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope, and this is the faith I take home with me. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. And this will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, "My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring." And if America is to become a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the Gateway Arch.
Yeah.
Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the Ozarks of Missouri. And so let freedom ring from the old courthouse, but not only that. Let freedom ring from the streets of St. Charles. Let freedom ring from the Delmar Divide. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Missouri. And from every mountainside, let freedom ring. And when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up the day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews, Gentiles, Protestants, Catholics, and Muslims, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of that old spiritual, free at last, free at last.
Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Amen.
Oh.